I hit a record while I'm still working out the weather here. I haven't put away my jacket yet, so today I got my
It was like
windows.
61 degrees here or something, like low in the 40s, overcast. It was the
Mm.
sun just came out, so I think it's warming up
Yeah,
quickly
today's
now.
today's warmer, so it's the first time where
Yeah.
I'm like, should I close my windows? I've just I don't I think Zoom takes care of most of the weird ambient noises,
Okay.
like because listening to the raw emission logs, it's like there's a truck, there's a plane. I'm like, I don't hear it. So
Yeah.
I,
Okay,
I don't
good.
know if people hear when a train passes by, but hit my I get wacky with my mute button when that happens. So yeah,
You don't want to get wacky with the mute button. So I
yeah,
got
yeah.
your notes, I think. I got my notes. If
Oh,
you think that sounds okay,
I should get
I'll
my
uh
notes then.
I'll just continue then.
The
Oh, how you
parallel.
been, man? You been good?
Pretty good. Yeah, yeah.
Good. What's
What's
the um, are you concentrating? You probably no time for small talk.
I got time. Actually, I do if you do.
Okay.
I got
No,
2 hours. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. What's the school year like in Japan or where
Starts
you
in
are in Japan anyway?
starts in April, finishes in March. So they'll finish like somewhere early to mid-March and go back to school the first or second week of April. Because April's actually like in Japan is actually the new year. Like we do New Year's like January 1st like everyone else, but
Okay.
traditionally it's April and that's when the business year starts. So people mostly start in their companies in April as well.
Interesting.
And all my
Okay, so
classes
just
change in
yeah.
April, right? So
Okay.
I've been on a new schedule for the past 2.5 months. It's kind of
Great.
annoying because when you, especially younger kids, you teach them through April and they start to get used to you. And then there's a week vacation. And then they come back and it's like back to square one.
Mm,
Like all the work you did in April to get your class kind of like, following a routine gone.
gone.
Yeah. Uh, while I'm thinking about it, our new use Whiteboard Classic. I don't trust new Whiteboard. I'm just putting the text of the prologue here while I'm thinking about it. There you go. And I'll stop that share for now. Okay. But yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of the new year. Makes sense. That's spring, everything's starting. School starts, business starts, plants
Yeah.
start, animals
Spring.
wake up.
Yeah, it's just so almost I mean, you probably couldn't be more opposite of, the schedule here. So I'm like, what?
I mean, they don't get like the 3 month holiday either.
Yeah.
They get like a month in August. I think they get a little bit longer around New Year's, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't remember what I got as a kid in the States, and about a month around
Yeah,
March. But then they're
that
going to like club activities and stuff still. So it's like, oh, you're on vacation. What are you doing today? I'm going to school. What? Why?
we that month vacation, man, is not what it used to be. Sound level okay? I don't know that I can adjust it
I don't know
much
if you
on
can turn up
Zoom.
the gain a little bit, or if maybe directly on the mic. Do you have knobs such as these? Turning up the gain there might help a little bit.
I do not. Let
Oh,
me
that's
check.
good. Maybe it's placement.
Oh,
When
is
you
it?
said that sounds good. So maybe it's a
Okay.
placement thing. Yeah.
Okay. Good, good, good.
You might have shifted
All right. And
position.
I did just, well, I opened up I'm getting a little side tone now too, so I must have had it way down.
Yeah, yeah.
Um yeah, that sounds better.
Now it sounds a little
Is
loud.
there
I
a
need to get
place
closer.
Oh, let me
No, no, it's fine. I'll just be
I
a
can
little
turn it back
closer.
down. Is there a place in Zoom? I know because I've been using StreamYard so much
Mm.
that um to adjust your volume on here, like is there like an automatic volume
In Zoom
recording volume or
itself,
anything? Yeah.
I've never tried to use that, so maybe
Okay.
no.
Good. Yeah.
Uh,
Anything under microphone, I don't see audio settings.
I've been doing my Disney podcast
Uh
on StreamYard because for why we have a background. I guess that's why you're doing the Orville one on there, right? You get the background.
yeah. So
I
okay, yeah, I just saw some things and then volume. I can do an automatically adjust, but yeah, there it is right there. So that sounds no good.
Oh yeah, that's bad adjust.
That
That
sounds
sounds
really loud.
yeah,
Was check one, check
that's
two, check
good.
one, check two. You like that?
Yeah, that seems to work.
Okay, good deal. I'll
Yeah,
leave
yeah.
it.
I've spent I've now I got a new computer, a new mic, audio is coming fine, but I think it was around like November and December or January, I was just going nuts because basically my tech was I think was just wearing out. So my
Right.
computer couldn't
Yeah.
handle Zoom anymore. The mic was getting crackly, and
It
yeah.
just I always push it way too far to where it's like it yeah, it's I don't manage the change well. It just sort of manages me,
It
you
is
know. And
you know about brick walling with music. Do you know what that means?
I do not.
That's especially in the 2000s. Mastering, they like if you look at a sound wave, if you look at like vinyl or say a CD from the 80s, it's kind of
Hmm.
small and it's got dynamics, but loud sounds better on the radio. So by the 2000s, like all the mixes were like
Okay,
maxed
yeah,
out, which clips out some of the detail. But as someone who masters live audio, sometimes it's hard not to brick wall. Like you made a
yeah,
mix, the mix is a
right.
little loud, and it's like, well, the song doesn't have that much dynamics anyway, so maybe I'll, just
Might as
go with
well.
it. Yeah. And it gets people's attention if it's a little louder, even if you lose a little fidelity. So, but I do remember a few albums being completely ruined by that. I don't remember the name of it, but it was the Modest Mouse album that Johnny Marr from the Smiths played on. That album was like unlistenable because of the mastering.
Oh,
Which
okay, yeah.
Metallica's Death Magnetic, everyone was like, "Oh, it sounds better in Rock Band where they properly
Hmm.
mastered it because the CD is just loud and annoying."
Right.
So that's the best example. Which Latter Day Metallica is not my favorite necessarily, but their last time actually wasn't bad. But
Good. Good, good,
um,
good. I'm glad we got this working.
what else? I guess I can do one more chit chat thing while we're working out the tech kinks. I just watched The Founder. Have you seen that?
No, I don't think so.
You-
Yes. Yeah, the McDonald's movie.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw that. Love Michael Keaton, man. I'm glad, so glad to see his career getting well, it had been. I think it's still ongoing.
Yeah,
The resurgence that he deserves.
because he's just like I guess back in his he's in his prime now, but in his first prime he was like kind of
Yeah.
lovable goofball, right?
Right,
Which
right, right.
it kind of weaponized a little bit for Batman, of course.
Yeah.
But now he's kind of like charming evil,
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh shit, yeah, that's the bad guy. That's what a guy
Right.
said at when we went to see Spider-Man Homecoming.
Homecoming? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the first one. Which what a great role to give him after Birdman.
Oh, the best
Um,
scene in that movie is when he's giving his daughter and Peter Parker a ride to the prom,
oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
the best scene in the movie, and it's like no Spider-Man, no special effects, just
yep. That's it, man. When Peter showed up at the house, this guy behind us goes, "Oh, snap. That's the bad guy."
That's fun. See, sometimes it's worth having someone like chit chatter in a
Suck at
theater.
movies. Yeah.
My favorite, which I've brought up on podcasts before. Oh, sorry, I just got a Mark message here, but and that blew my mind. What was I talking about? Crap. And damn you, Mark.
One of your favorite in movie moments?
I erased my brain.
Okay,
Okay,
we were
Mark.
talking about when that guy said like, "Oh, snap, that's the
Oh,
bad guy."
favorite talking and movie moments. Okay, the
Yeah.
top two would be Transformers 2, Revenge of the
Okay.
Fallen, right? Because I'm sitting there in a mostly empty theater, but like three seats down is like a father and his kid. And every time a Transformer shows up on the screen, he'll shout the name of the Transformer. So
That's cute.
I'm like, oh, now I know who that is, because otherwise
Thank you.
it'd
Yeah.
been too long. I wouldn't know who they were.
Hmm.
The other one was Jason Goes to Hell, which was just an audience of people screaming at the movie the entire time on opening night. And that's a good movie for that. No, it's fantastic. Late night showing, and yeah, yeah. It's like I can't watch that movie again. I wouldn't enjoy it as much.
Oh, totally.
But
Sorry about my number of just like fucking hornball comments in my notes, but Tiffany's been out of town for a week and a half, so uh
yeah, I
like damn, Mama Astronaut's looking good.
sometimes it's kind of like like I'll put things in my notes I know damn well I'm not going to say on air.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I put them there just to make you chuckle.
yeah, yeah. Before
And
we
because
get
they're not.
into the depth of it, is there anything in here I wrote? I'm looking today if I wrote anything that was horrible. Nah, I don't think I did in this one. Guess this guy's a bad kisser. Okay, I'm kind of on the opposite thing.
I noticed that too.
I'm writing
Yeah.
cold fish notes here. But no, I was looking at an article just before we got on, which is kind of I have enough to I was trying to kind of pinpoint where, you know, this kind of started in pop culture. So,
Right.
which this is close to it. So, well, we'll get into it in a minute. So, I don't know. I guess it's a prelude to start the show then.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clear my throat horribly without hitting the mute button. Okay, there we go. Because usually I'm gonna do it that way, but
You'll
rocking my
get that on my
button.
local audio if you need it.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, I'm hitting my hard mute, right? You don't get that. You never see the mute on my screen because I'm always hitting the button on my mic.
Right.
But I think people can't like. Can you hear this? That come through? I'm typing on my keyboard. Okay, to me it sounds like there's like
Like
a
thud, 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 thud. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess I guess I just don't quite know how this works, right? But
I was live streaming yesterday on this with this group for the Orville that does it about once a month on Saturdays. And the guy from Talking the Orville heads it up. And this woman was there and she was really like interactive with the chat, which is great. And I was trying to interact with the chat also. But she was just like "Gah, gah, 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 gah." I was just like, it's good that she's interacting with the viewers on YouTube.
right, yeah, like
So I'm not going to say anything.
yeah, the Thursday night after darks, I'll pop in occasionally. I'm often doing the Disney podcast there, but if I'm not,
Yeah.
like last week
Uh-huh.
actually, I did because we started it and then hurricanes in Florida postponed it to the next week. The guy's
Oh,
power straight went out, and it's like, okay, we're not doing this today. But yeah, I'll kind of hang in the chat because when there's like 19 people, I'm like, you know what? I think I'll just say a few fun things in the chat and not try and
yeah, it's
elbow
it's
my
it's
way in.
tough. It's tough. And then it gets I've learned to enjoy the Thursday night thing less,
Yeah.
sadly.
Well, I enjoy my Sunday thing because I know you
I
can't show up
bet.
for that, but
Yeah.
it's usually like 4 to 6 people, and I'm the moderator. So
46 people. Yeah,
yeah,
no.
four, two,
That's kind
six,
of
yeah,
yeah, I know.
yeah,
The Orville group was I think the most we ever had on that was like 10 or 12, but it was usually probably the same 4 or 5 people that
yeah.
show up for everything.
And also they show up just from like wildly different places, which is kind of fun. That's the
That
point of
is
the
cool. Yeah, you
international.
got that international time for
Yeah,
it too,
there's a
which
lot of
is
people like I've learned BC Dom and Earl stay up really late, so
yeah. Yeah.
sometimes
I
they
was gonna
show
say
up.
BC and Dom were, the two that they show up for whatever. Like there was a time where I logged in once I like hit the button for like after dark or like one of the video channels, like by mistake, and like 2 seconds later, it's like, hey, so you're on here. What's going on?
Well, BC is probably listening to this. I think he listens to Patreon, but he can confirm
Yeah.
or deny that. I think he's
Yeah.
napping some of the time, which is fine because it's like 3 in the morning. But
Yeah. No, it's always a good excuse to talk to BC.
yeah, yeah. But who else? Yeah, we have a few people show up from Finland and Netherlands, and
Hmm.
we've had some Germany show up. So yeah. Yesterday we actually got a haze on for Wally because I was like after a Living Witness, I was like, well, Wally kind of fits that.
Yeah.
So that worked out
Uh-huh.
pretty well. My one
Yep.
concern was just like when you get, as when Luke, Mark, and I start talking, so we can freeze out a guest. So that was like kind of my anxiety going into it. Like I hope we
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
freeze,
Yeah.
which I don't think we did, but
Hmm.
occasionally, like you don't have that problem, I think. But although sometimes it's been 5 minutes, I'm like, hey, Mike, just because I understand it's hard to break through the wall of chatter
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, and I don't mind at all. I mean, it's one, I'm a guest on the show too. I enjoy the banter with you guys, and sometimes I just don't really have anything to add, and I just kind of want to, sort of pop
Yeah.
in,
In that
if I do have
situation, it's
something.
kind of like, well, I take up a quarter of the real estate. That's my share, isn't it? So,
Yeah. Hmm.
whereas this one, it's 2 people most of the time, so it's a lot more in your face, I guess.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah. What else do we have coming up? This week's actually nice. I'll finally catch up with your TED because I've watched the first two and listened to your first two TEDs. Haven't gotten to the third yet because I was so busy watching things. But now I'm kind of ahead. Like I watched tomorrow's Twilight Zone. I got to watch Space 1999, but that's not a big deal. And
Yeah.
Friday's
Hmm.
Monsters Inc. again. I watched it last week, so I got time for other
Nice.
stuff, which is
I,
yeah, nice.
I, yeah, I'm really kind of blown away at Talking Ted. Definitely on the video side of things. I have no idea, and I don't have any idea ever what the podcast does. I mean, that I'm not privy to those kind of analytics, but I can see how many views the YouTube version has. And where with Mission Log the Orville, we had, I think, 1,500 or so to 2,000 when we had Seth on the show. Other than that, we kind of are in a very, I don't know, less than 1,000. Most of them have more than several hundred, views on YouTube of Mission Log the Orville. Our chat with Georgia Wiggum for episode 1 had over 5,000.
Well, that's an actual
The,
episode, right? So that
the
helps.
last time I checked. Yeah. Yeah. The chat with Seth had we chatted with Seth sort of as like a prelude to Talking Ted. That had a couple of thousand. Um and I was just really, so we had Georgia, and then we had Seth, then Georgia. Um I know we had Alana Ubach, but that has yet to air. But then we had an episode where it was just me and Jess, and it was like kind of back down to Mission the Orville numbers as far as like number of views go. So I honestly had a lot of fun just doing the me and Jess episodes. Whereas like I said, there's I think some with, I don't know if nerves is the right thing, but it's kind of like having a guest over. It's
Mm.
your
That's what I
maybe a
said
little
with
bit
Wally
more.
yesterday. So it came
Yeah,
out really well, but yeah, just
good.
before it, I was, I basically, go for the same pool of guests these days.
Hmm.
About 15 people I pull in. So when it's someone new
Yeah.
now, I'm like, oh, a little bit of like, is this going to
Hmm.
work out okay? Also, on the Disney one, we had someone whose publicist invited him, like an actor, and the podcast was
Oh,
fine, but
cool.
after, I think she thought it was going to be an interview, right? And after, she was
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I felt like I didn't get to talk much. I'm like, actually, that was where this is I mean, do your homework a little bit. If I had invited her and that was the case, I would have felt bad. But in this, I'm like, well, you might want to do your homework a little bit, just like a little bit.
Yeah. Was it that they didn't have a sense of the material, or?
I think it's a thing where another thing where me and the other guy will just go on rants about the movie and stuff
Right.
because that's
Yeah.
what, as you know, when you do a media podcast, that's what you do. You just kind of
Yeah.
turn on the rant machine for a minute and then turn it off and let someone else come in. But if you're coming in thinking like, hey, I'm going to be interviewed and that's what's happening, I could see where you might be a little bit like, I don't like this.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
but again, I think that the product's fine. This was like after the record was over when she kind of.
Hmm.
I kind of noticed she seemed a little grumpy in the last 20 minutes. So I actually was kind of
Right.
like pulled it into. It was like maybe slightly short than normal, but as the producer guy, you have an eye for that, right? So.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I'll talk to folks after we do one of our supplementals drops, and they're like, you don't talk a whole lot. And I'm like, I've got a list of bullet items, and as long as they get talked about, Jessica's banter is great. I mean, she keeps the person we're interviewing engaged and talking and kind of very, very active. And every once in a while I'll be like, okay, I'll segue to 2 or 3 things that I had on my list that we hadn't covered at that
Yeah.
point. And I think we can kind of fold them in then. And other than that, that's really about all I do. That's all I want to do, is just sort of set the stage and then kind of sit back and kind of watch the person chat.
See, on the converse, I was a guest as the interview subject for a podcast last year, and I'm sitting there like I feel like I'm just kind of ranting on and on,
Yeah. I mean,
because
when we
that
had
was an interview situation.
yeah, and we had Doug Drexler on the show, just ahead of time. She's like, "What are we going to talk to Doug for about an hour? Just say, Doug, what's been going on?" That's all we got to do. That's all. That's all. Trust me, that's all we're gonna have to do with him. And we had a blast. That was for virtual TrekCon with uh the Ferengi
That's
rules guy, rules of acquisition. What's the name of
oh,
that
Armin
podcast?
Shimmerman.
Yeah, it was yeah, it's Chirac's show, and he does it with Ryan Husk now. He started doing it with Aaron Eisenberg, and it is called The Seventh Rule.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
know I've heard of that before. Yeah,
yeah.
because
And they did a virtual Trek convention, virtual Trek Con, and Jessica and I interviewed Doug, and we had a blast.
oh, okay, different than the Trek Talk, so which
Yeah,
is one I know about. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We are gonna do this 10 minutes ago. Okay. Let's do it.
let's do it.
I do have again. I've got plenty of time. My train is in an hour and 50 minutes, so plenty of time.
Okay. I got local recording. Do you want to do a clap for sync or anything like that, or you
um.
probably?
It'll probably be fine. I
Okay.
find when I use local, sometimes I usually don't unless I have to because there's always
Right.
latency and you have to sit there like cut, cut, push.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I do know I've used your local at least once. So,
Okay.
it is a good backup anyway. Um, yeah. So I just wait 5 seconds and start talking basically, and then cite
Gotcha.
it in the SoundForge. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we dive into all of the episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond. This is Matt here, as always, coming back for another round. A second hour-long episode round is Mike Richards from the Mission Log, the Orville podcast. How you doing?
Doing great, Matt. Thanks for having. And I guess now I can say I'm part of the stable of the Roddenberry Podcast Network because we've been doing Talking Ted, a shore leave series on the Roddenberry Podcast Network.
Yes, a show which I didn't know existed until you mentioned it, because it's hard to know what shows exist anymore. But
It's
it's good. You should watch it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. John and Jessica came up with a modified format where we have some guests on the show, drink a little bit of Bear Fight whiskey, which is sponsoring the episodes, and just kind of have a little bit of fun, man. Jessica and I barely got done recording the other night before the wheels fell off, so we've been having a pretty good time sipping whiskey and talking Ted.
What was your cocktail, or was it just straight?
The other night I made something called a New York sour, which is like a whiskey sour, and then you layer in some sweet red wine. I had a like a blackberry wine that my wife picked up from a local wine shop. Uh local vintner, and it was really good. It had sort of like a nice purplish orange glow to it, and as you sip into it, you kind of get more of the wine as you work your way down to the bottom of the drink. But I've had it on the rocks. I've had it neat. I've had it just with a little bit of water, with some soda, as an old fashioned, as a hot toddy, and it's up to the task, man. It's very amenable and it's very adaptable, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. It's an American single malt.
Okay, a single malt catches my attention a little bit. Um, no, my most recent drinking experience that was well, I mean that was notable was I went with regular podcast partner Luke and his girlfriend Mercy at Disney Sea, and they've got the USS Columbia, like the liner from the turn of the century, and they have the Teddy
Right.
Roosevelt Lounge, and I got like the 15 buck Manhattan there. But it's worth it. You're sitting around the wood paneled room, and yeah, it was
Oh,
pretty
that
cool.
sounds amazing.
We actually tried to record a bit of a podcast in there, but I was talking like this so we wouldn't get kicked out, so I wasn't too loud because I know I'll raise my voice when I do a podcast. So I don't know if that was usable or not. I sounded like I was giving a lecture or something. So yeah,
Well,
time.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I've podcasted in some weird places. Side of a mountain, that happened once for Spider-Man 2. It was very windy. The audio is maybe not the best podcast you're ever going to hear, but an
And that was
iPad.
Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire, Doc Ock, Spider-Man 2.
Yep, yep. Which we'd already done the first Spider-Man, and it's weird with superhero movies. I mean, I'm doing the Twilight Zone podcast because when I started doing podcasts, I was like, oh yeah, we were all in love with superhero movies. Had just come out, and I was like, we'll probably be talking about them a lot. But when you start talking about them in podcast form, you quickly find there's not a whole lot to discuss in a superhero movie.
Hmm.
Although I am going to bring up some superheroes in today's episode for sure, but yeah, it's like when you end up talking about X-Men and Batman, it kind of works best as tangents in other episodes.
Yeah.
That's kind of
I
our cue to know we're winding up when it's like, hey, we've been talking about Batman for 15 minutes, and this is Paths of Glory, a 1957 Stanley Kubrick film about World War One. I guess we're finished. So, or Star Wars or whatever. Once we've been on that for a while, it's like, hey,
Oh
it's time
yeah.
to pull that one into the shed. Um,
Yeah.
Today's episode, of course, is The Parallel, the only season 4 episode that I had previously watched, mostly because of the subject matter. So, I think you said in your notes you had not seen this one.
I had not seen this one, but I thought it was funny that when I stayed around for the coming attractions for the preview to next week, that I had seen the Genie in the Lamp episode. So I'm looking forward to watching that again in full. And the only excuse I have for watching that, since these hour-long ones I don't think appeared in the syndication packages, they did show when Sci-Fi Channel and other places would do their daily marathons of the Twilight Zone some mostly during a holiday, kind of an all day New Year's Day thing, all day Thanksgiving thing. I must have seen it during that kind of event.
Yeah, I had before I had my proper Twilight Zone set, I had about 15 of the really old DVDs that had 3 or 4 episodes, depending on if it was an hour-long episode. And one I was inclined to put on the ones with 4 episodes, not three, right? And
Right.
and if I'm just watching one episode, I'm usually like, I got 25 minutes. I don't have 50. So I would end up not putting, because those just, I probably had about 4 or 5 of those episodes. But yeah, here comes a train. I don't know if people can hear these trains or not, but I,
I can't hear it right now.
okay. It sounds like the end of the world from my microphone. So good job, Zoom, I guess. Okay. Where were we? Yeah, anyway, I wasn't inclined to watch the because I'm just like, I want to blast through four or I want to watch one, and these 3 episode discs are throwing off my game. But now we're deep into them. Now I've seen most of them. So yay.
Yeah. And dare I say, by the time you're done, you'll see them all.
Yes, yes, that is true. Give me another month. We'll see them all. Maybe 2 months. I will do a little trivia on this. Original air date was March 14th, 1963. That's White Day in Japan. Do you know White Day?
I do not.
Valentine's Day, only women give men chocolate. So if a woman gave you chocolate on March 14th, you're supposed to give them some white chocolate or just chocolate. So it's kind of,
Interesting.
it's not just Valentine, because Valentine's Day the pressure is usually on the guy, which it's not in Japan, which I'm not, maybe it's better that it is. I don't know. I don't know. A lot of people
So
hate Valentine's Day
is this
anyway.
some sort of is this something you do with your partner, or is this something that you do to let somebody know you're interested,
Well,
or
no,
any
it's kind of
combination?
like if my coworkers give me chocolate on Valentine's Day, I know I need to get those coworkers chocolate for White Day. It's not a romantic thing. I mean,
It's transactional.
actually, my wife gives me nothing. I get nothing from my wife for
Is
Valentine's
she
Day.
within earshot?
No. Her mother gives me chocolate, so I got to give her mother back some chocolate. Her sister gives me chocolate, but my wife is like, don't eat all that chocolate. So she didn't give me any chocolate, that is.
She cares about you, Matt. She wants you to be healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's White Day for all you folks out there. Script is by Rod Serling. Steve Forrest was Major Robert Gaines. He moved from Broadway to TV and would gain recognition on the mid-70s program SWAT and notoriety as they knew Jock Ewing on Dallas. Am I saying the name right? Ewing? I never watched Dallas, but
Ewing.
Ewing on Dallas in the late. Sorry,
Ewing.
let
Yeah.
me start that one more time. He had notoriety as the new Jock Ewing on Dallas in the late 80s, replacing ailing actor Jim Davis, not the creator of Garfield, if anyone's wondering. So it was like the one actor got sick, he replaced him, but people didn't like it. It was kind of like that Spartacus Stars TV show about 10 years ago, where they had the first season, they had a really great actor playing Spartacus, and he
Right.
died, so they had to get someone else. But you watch the other
Yeah.
seasons, and it's like, I really missed. I wish we still had the other guy. This guy's fine, but it's just different. So I imagine that's how Dallas viewers were feeling.
Yeah, maybe not as betrayed as Bewitched fans, but
Oh,
maybe,
right.
maybe just as betrayed.
Right, because he was a little sick. He had like back problems, but he didn't die. So I could see that
Right.
being a little more
Yeah,
raw.
little understanding maybe could be offered.
We'll have a little more Bewitched talk, I guess, next week with I Dream of Genie, or I Dream of Genie talk. I guess that was my jam, so I didn't watch much Bewitched.
No, I was definitely an I Dream of Genie fan.
Yeah. Uh, Jacqueline Scott played Helen Gaines. The bulk of her work was more than 100 TV guest appearances, but I've got to note that she showed up in William Castle's Macabre, especially having missed
Macabre.
Macabre. Yeah, you can say it that way. Um, I missed the William Castle reference last week. John Champion called me out on it. I was like, "Oh, I got one for next week, man. Don't worry." Colonel Bill Conacher was played by Frank at a letter. Okay, Frank a letter. You got some weird names to pronounce. Says the guy whose last name is Comages. His filmography is the regular TV guest jockey run. What stood out to me is that he was married to Lee Merriweather for 16 years. Go get him,
Lucky
Tiger.
guy. Look at him.
Philip Albert was General Easton. I can't read today. Philip Abbott was General Eaton. He'd make himself a more familiar face a few years later with a lead role on the FBI, which I guess was a big show at the time, but I have not seen that. I keep coming across FBI references during the trivia for this.
Such a long history of, police overreach television.
Yeah. I got my, not police, but I got my Mission Impossible set here for when I want to get into that. Mike, I am up. It didn't remember my whiteboard. How horrible. Okay. Mm-mm-mm. Now I am giving myself an edit point, aren't I? It's small. Let me make it a little bigger. What? This is why I hate these new whiteboards. Now it's forced me onto the new whiteboard, even though I started this on the old whiteboard. Oh, that's too big, isn't it? Okay. Edit point, continue in. And there's a plane, but you can't hear the plane. So that's
I cannot.
of note to podcasters. This stuff does not necessarily come through. Okay. Can you see the prologue?
I can if you drag it down. Okay, perfect right now.
That's perfect now. Okay.
Yep. I think I can make that work. Let's see. Can I?
Think you
Embiggen
can.
on my end.
I could drag it down a little bit if that helps.
I don't need down.
Oh
I'm just
no.
gonna. Is this a mirror? This isn't a Miro board, but it's like a Miro board, I guess.
How's that?
That should work. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that
Okay.
helps quite a bit. Yep.
Great.
All right. You got enough stuff to lead me into, or do you gotta?
I'm just gonna edit right after the trivia and blast you right into this, I
All right.
guess.
Sounds good. Let me try to be serious, but not too Rod Serling like. Oh, what the hell? I'll just try to be Rod Serling like.
That's what a lot of people do.
In the vernacular of space, this is T minus 1 hour, 60 minutes before a human being named Major Robert Gaines is lifted off from Mother Earth and rocketed into the sky, farther and longer than any man ahead of him. Call this one of the first faltering steps of man to sever the umbilical cord of gravity and stretch out a fingertip toward an unknown. Shortly, we'll join this astronaut named Gaines and embark on an adventure, because the environs overhead, the stars, the sky, the infinite space, are all part of a vast question mark known as the Twilight Zone.
All right. So
One take, baby.
yeah, the thing that attracted me to this episode in the first place and kind of keeps it notable now, I think, is this is not an episode that is repeating anything. I don't. Okay, there was and when the sky was open, I think, where they go into space and come back and start vanishing, but that's still different. I think this is
Yeah.
kind of a new concept in pop culture in general to have the slightly different parallel world. You mentioned doppelganger in your notes, the Anderson.
I did. Also known to the American audience as Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, which you can just kind of hang around where you are for a while and end
That's
up in
the
the same
counter
place.
Earth idea, right? Where there is another
Yes.
Earth, as in the movie Another Earth as well.
Yeah.
But where there's physically, which actually I thought that's what this was. So once we got near end, oh no, this is not a counter Earth thing. This is a dimensional pocket or something. He's going to
Right.
the mirror sort of tear in space or
Yeah.
whatever.
So this was
Another one.
63. This was several months, March to November, so about 8 months before JFK was assassinated.
Right.
So he was still president in our reality. So I was just wondering about that when that was asked. I looked up the air date of this one. But yeah,
I did the same thing.
just a few changes, right? Not a ton, but just some. Eddie Rickenbacker, World War I ace. I did not know about the World War II getting shot down, being in a raft kind of thing. I did know that he went on to be the president of Eastern Airlines.
Not in the other world though, but
Not in the other world. They were just like, yeah, fucker, should have. Sorry. Not. Sorry, here's your edit point. Not in the other reality, though. They were like, ah, man, guy should have thought ahead and not gotten himself shot down.
Yeah. Otherwise, he's so famous now because he just downed himself in a war. We don't know all those guys, you know.
Yeah, no, we don't.
I guess you could look them up. Is that what they did? And I'm forgetting a few details, I guess. But I am thinking like in modern pop culture, it's only been the past 10 years where people are generally like, yeah, parallel thing where things are slightly different, you know?
Well, yeah,
Like as not time travel, not like a, heaven, hell, completely different world situation, with these slightly different, the multiverse is kind of recently entered
yeah,
pop culture.
definitely that. I mean, when I and it's a fairly new, I'd say, concept for me. I mean, Star Trek, the original series, Mirror Mirror, kind of planted a seed in my head that we have, this reality and then the opposite reality. And of course, the opposite reality is, people, all the exact same people dressed slightly different and maybe with some different facial hair choices, that make really mean decisions. But that was it, like just those two. And then even, fast forward into Discovery with the multiverse and, many, many, many different universes they talk about. Mostly in season one, I think, when Lorca was trying to get back
Right.
to whatever one. The Marvel Universe, I would say probably, was it Parallels? Was that the name of that next gen episode also?
Oh yeah,
Where
that's
where Worf
cited on the wiki as a direct,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
descendant of this episode of the
so
Twilight Zone.
every decision that one could make branches off into a different universe, which is interesting. One of those realities, fun fact, Klingons give out a trophy for ninth place.
That's right. Well, if you survived, you get a trophy.
There you go.
They don't give trophies to the dead Klingons in that case.
Yeah.
But no, I did grow up reading comic books. I was more of a Marvel guy, which
Oh yeah.
ironically back in the day didn't do so many parallel
Mhm.
universes. That was DC's thing, Crisis on Infinite Earths. I mean, Marvel, it's like
Yeah.
616. They did a little bit of it, so it was
Mhm.
there. But DC was the one that really rocked it because I was looking, when did that start? And that is 2 years before this episode with A Tale of Two Flashes, which I
Right, and Flashpoint and those kind of things,
well, this is
yeah.
long before Flashpoint. This is simply
Right.
the Flash that we introduced to you in 1957 or whatever it was, is
Mhm.
now meeting the Flash from the 40s who lives in a parallel universe. It
Dang.
just an excuse to get them together, you know? This one, I guess, thinks about a little bit harder, right? It's just like Flash runs into the other Flash's reality. They have an adventure together. Flash goes home, you know?
Yeah.
Crisis of Infinite Earths is when it starts becoming filled with existential dread and all of that. Otherwise, you just want to get the Justice League and the Justice Society together, and that's how you do it.
That's the fact.
But now we want to mix it in with more science, right? I guess the superhero bubble is fully popping, but at least for 6 months, people were pretty obsessed with the multiverse, I think.
I
Getting
think so
mad with the
too.
multiverse. It's this episode was a little more confusing when I first saw it 15 years ago, and now it's like, yeah, of course.
Right. Yeah, I was very much kind of wondering how this was gonna play out at the end. And I don't know if that's something, you skip for later, but I was intrigued whether or not this was, all a dream, kind of a dream state, whether it was just gonna end up being very ambiguous. um an actual, maybe we find some things out that, he's one way and, the parallel universe is the other way of what we were thinking. I was really kind of very much curious as to how it was, where it was going with this. But I think they didn't really leave much room for, is this real or is it a dream? There's
Well,
no
the
in
end
between
spells it
here.
out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no end here. It was real.
So I guess the thing that maybe I would have improved upon in this episode is his entering the parallel dimensions. Fine, he blacks out. They don't know why. He can't tell them. The
Hmm.
craft landed. They got it in, right? That makes sense. They got him out of the craft. When he goes back, he's walking towards the ship. He gets dizzy and suddenly he's in space again. That's the one where I'm like, I mean, that's a fine Twilight Zone moment, but since everything else in the episode makes logical sense within the parameters of this episode, of course, but that does not. That's just like, why is he suddenly in the ship again?
I did not get that either. Other than whatever switched them from one to the other,
I will say
switched
the
them back somehow,
film
but I
making
don't.
aspect of it, the direction production aspect of it was very cool. But
It was, and it also kind of led me to think, okay, maybe he'll black out again, then wake up, and everything from happened, from the explosion that we saw in Act One to the same explosion that we saw, or bright light anyway, that we saw at the end. Maybe all of that in between that was a dream sequence, but it wasn't. So I don't know. Maybe it was just sort of mentally they were swapped, but that doesn't really work either because we got a transmission from
yeah, they're both
Colonel
physically there
Gaines
in the end.
following, at a later period of time than when this cat was already back. So, um,
It might be how
yeah,
most horror movies now are deflated with well, if they had a cell phone, then they wouldn't be having these problems. This might be
yeah,
kind of like we're just now getting used to the idea of reusable spacecraft. So it's like, just send them back up, you know? Whereas in 1963, no one is going to think you can reuse a Mercury capsule, you know?
right. Yeah, because I kind of thought that might turn to that where sent, I'm telling you guys, you got to send me back up,
Yeah,
and
not in that thing.
yeah, and think that there's going to be a, you know, congressional approval for that within a matter of days. Interesting that the ships were different,
I wanted to
slight
bring
ever
that
so
up.
slightly.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, I mean, you're a pilot. I'm sure you've been in many aircraft of different, the same model, but different aircrafts. Do you pick
Mhm.
up on these things?
You really do. So as assembly lines evolve, and I mean, they made 737, say the 700 series for something like 20 years. And so you could be flying a particular model and a particular series of jet, and there are differences that happen to them over time. Not to mention the fact that even just if two airplanes are going down the line next to each other, one after another, and one worker is bundling wires and doing things a certain way, I'm sure there is just slightly nuanced differences of, how things are spliced and bundled and fixed, to the aircraft, like all within, normal tolerances. But I do see differences from aircraft to aircraft within the same aircraft type.
Yeah, I want to ask you because it's more directly tied to this episode. I was thinking, I notoriously have too many guitars, and if you handed me same make, same model, I'd be able to tell the difference because I know where all the little imperfections and dings are on my guitars, and then they're mostly in good condition. But like there's like one little ding that I know about. So if that's
Mhm.
not there, I know it's not the same thing.
Right. Yeah, just the use that they get.
Exactly. Like my acoustic is kind of unfinished and it's kind of nice because all of them it's real wood and when you look through them on eBay or whatever like all of them look like really different because they all have different wood grain patterns. So
So I was wondering so very early on in the episode, they put Major at the time, Gaines, lying on his back in in an astronaut chair. Was the idea that they would load that whole device then into, the tip of the rocket? I mean, it looked like that thing was made with fence posts and angles that got screwed together. I was
I guess my note is they're setting him in place in a random locker room. Question mark. I didn't type the question mark, but I think I meant to. Like it looked like a high school gym or something, And it's like, why are they doing this here? I'm guessing it's modular, but they can't even be. You wouldn't you? I could be wrong, but I feel like the astronauts would like go up the tower and climb on in, right?
That's
Contact
kind of what
style.
I've sort of seen him do before.
Yeah.
Open the hatch, crawl in. You end up, you do lay on your back when you're in there. But
I
I don't
wonder
know.
if maybe people didn't generally like were less knowledgeable about the mechanics of spaceflight at that time. They just know, oh, Gordon Cooper and Alan Shepard have made into space. That's about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, they mentioned by name. Um,
Cooper, is
you
it?
know,
Because he's the
uh,
fastest man.
well, I was getting some serious Gordy Cooper vibes with
Uh, That's how
the
the right stuff
prologue.
ends, yeah.
Yeah, the prologue when he was like higher, faster, and farther
Yeah.
than anyone's gone before. But no, let's see. It was Alan Shepard, Navy man, followed by Gus Grissom, Indiana guy, Purdue grad, Air Force. And then it kind of sounded like they hadn't addressed John Glenn, Marine
I
going
just
up
skipped John
into
Glenn,
space and
so for no
doing his
reason.
orbits. So yeah, they could skip John Glenn if they want to. But yeah, and
He
then
has a
Gordy Cooper,
second
I think
career
was
ahead
the
of
last of the. Yeah, he did okay for himself.
him.
Yeah, became a senator from Ohio for several decades and went back into space as well. I think at the time he was oldest astronaut, maybe. I don't
Are
know,
you
probably.
familiar with Gordon Cooper's second career?
Oh, mapping, looking for the treasure.
Yeah.
my
Apparently, he was
my
taking photos from his capsule, and I'll put these to use later.
Yeah, my wife watched that whole series, um, which I think it was might have been like his kids that picked up the mantle and looked at his.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cooper's
they ever
treasure
find
or
it?
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they ever find anything?
I don't know. I heard
Yeah,
one of the producers or one of the kids or somebody involved with it on a podcast, but that was like 6 years ago. And
right.
of course, he was like, "Oh, we're about to find something," but I don't know if they did.
Yeah, Scott Carpenter, who I met when I was in college, he came and spoke to our school. Went on to be an aquanaut as well. So he's if you look at his distance from, he was one of the uh, went deepest into the ocean and then also went into orbit. I think one of the only had some sort of record for being the only person to do both of those things.
Yeah, and oh, the other fun while we're on astronauts' second careers, one of the Apollo guys became like a metaphysicist.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, because he was like doing like ESP. One he said he had some profound thing, but he was like doing ESP experiments like on the way back, like with people on Earth apparently.
Wow.
It's one of the later Apollo missions. Not third, it might be 17. Oh, 17 is the one at the space station. No, that 17, Apollo 17 was. This is always a mind blower for me that it's the own yeah Harrison H. Schmitt. It's the only scientist we sent to the moon.
Wow.
Like it was all like you said, Air Force guys and Navy guys until then. So
Yeah, and that was commanded by Gene Cern, and Gene was the was also a Purdue grad. I just got a you know shill for my university. So first man and last man on the moon were both Purdue grads. Little fun fact for you.
let's see. I'm trying to figure out which is the spacey spaceman. It's not Eugene Cernan. He has seemed to have a normal career. Anyway, yeah, one of them, just got into like kind of metaphysical. So, but hey, why not? You've been in space. Do something else now. Try and make sense out of your space trip, I guess, is what he was doing or something. I'm just checking 16 to make sure I. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Harrison Schmitt, lunar module pilot and first scientist astronaut to walk
yes.
on the moon.
Yes, because I mean NASA just did not want it. They wanted to put like, test pilots in there, and this is the point where they're getting like maybe we can start like spreading out a little bit, because
And then everybody
the
was like, boring.
right, because the space shuttle, tons of scientists. Who do we send to the International Space Station? The
Yeah,
scientists, like
right.
so boring. Send the jocks into space. I mean, not the jocks,
Eggs.
the jockeys into space. That's what we want.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
in this
they
episode,
put oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, this episode we are sending the space jockey into space. This guy's got enough swagger.
He does. He's got a ton of swag. And I didn't, so they showed his bird colonel logo, his rank he was surprised at and thought he was a major. But I did not see until the end of the episode when he was I think this was right before he ran to the uh to the spacecraft and, got transported back to his own reality. Did I notice the eagle globe and anchor on his shirt? Which is indicative of a Marine. So the other two officers there were both U.S. Air Force.
Okay, but
So I didn't know if that was. I didn't know if that was consistent throughout the episode or not. I imagine it was.
yeah, I feel like I mean they just in Hollywood, so many shows have to do this and keep it consistent.
Hmm.
Um, you don't want to screw that up. People will notice. I mean, you got like 45-year-old guys who'd been in the war, and they're going to notice in 1963, even on
Oh heck
TV.
yeah,
They're gonna
yep,
write a letter to CBS, if it's
yeah. And
not
maybe they
right.
just figured Robert Gaines was enough of a Marine that they didn't need to mention John Glenn as well. Or maybe he was kind of an allegory for John Glenn because you
That could
said
be the case.
that was right
Yeah.
about the time. not that John Glenn's not a handsome man, but Robert Gaines, man, he had some movie star good looks.
Yeah,
He's got
my fourth note here is had Glenn already done a few Earth circles when this aired or in production. I guess I could use the magical internet to figure that out too, because I wonder if this was kind of a celebratory episode of putting a man in orbit.
Orgit, man. That's our
Orbit.
portmanteau of the day.
Put the man in orbit. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Well, let's see when the man took his loop around the Earth. Chosen
Oh, it was way
57.
before this.
Yeah, Friendship 7 flight is man, it's telling me so many things. Well, a year earlier. So, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess in pop culture terms, it has a year to marinate. You write the script, you make the episode. I could see this being
right.
like when we did the shelter in season 2 or 3, it turned out like there was a whole big thing that summer about everyone wanting to start civil defense shelters like in that summer. I guess the
Hmm.
missile crisis had just happened, right? So everyone's like, we need to start building shelters. So there's a Twilight episode, directly addressing that. So
Yeah.
this one's a little more time removed actually, because I think it was like the
Uh-huh.
end of the summer that was one of the first episodes of the season, where this well, I guess since Twilight Zone was canceled for 6 months, that's an excuse, but
That's a good point. Speaking of of the time, man, that so the exterior of the house with that picket fence, or not really picket fence, it certainly did not look like a brand new fence though.
well, in one universe
Um
it had a fence. Oh, picket. I think it
that
was a picket fence,
that
was it? White
I
picket
was
fence?
like, is that the literal I Dream of Genie house in Cocoa Beach? Because to me, it was giving off that exact same vibe with the
Series, not next
with
week's episode.
exactly right. Um, so it looked just like that. And that living room, man, with the console TV. And I loved that place. I thought that was the coolest set.
Yeah, yeah, mid-century modern, always a good time. Um, I did think the his wife, Helen Gaines, there we go. She, like I think people are always like Kate Mulgrew, Star Trek Voyager kind of comes across as Katharine Hepburn, where this reminded me of Kate Mulgrew, but not Hepburn, weirdly enough. So it's just the vibes of Helen.
It was, I tell you, she was not unattractive. I feel like just as somebody who, reviews TV shows, I needed to point that out. Nothing personal. But I do think I think she played the role really, really well. I think that she was she was being very supportive and giving her husband compassion and time and
Giving this guy
understanding.
compassion and time.
Yeah, yeah, to yeah, whoever this guy was. But then when he kissed her, man, she was like, "Ugh, that is not my man. My man does not kiss like that. He kisses like some wrinkled up old colonel, and my man still kisses like a major."
Mm. I think it's the other way around, by the way, but sure.
Well, but just because he was I was thinking just because he was a colonel doesn't mean he lost that,
Right, right.
lost that ability. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, no, it was I thought it was I thought that role was played fantastic, but um he Mulgrew vibes,
I guess just
definitely looks kind of the Mary, kind of the Mrs. Columbo era.
yeah, there we go. That's kind of
Yeah,
what
kind
I'm
of post Mary Ryan, maybe pre Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins.
all right. Um, although I will say this episode did stretch the taffy a little bit. Um, there were a few times. By the way, I don't hear your dog. He's not coming through. If he's barking, I don't hear it.
Good.
Yeah, but I was going to say this one does have like I feel like there's several times we get the same scene twice, especially where they're like, because like literally it's two conversations with him and his wife about like things not being quite right, but there's like two scenes of that. Then there's one with the daughter, then there's one with Bill Conacher. There's just so many scenes of that. With one probably would have done it.
Yeah, and I think that was just trying to adapt to and fill up the hour-long format.
Yeah, because recently the shows have seemed a little more suited to an hour, but in this case, I was like, I think this one was 25 minutes and they had to stretch it.
Did
I think
you
this is an older script.
Yeah, did you see I noticed a couple of weird things about about Helen early on when she was making cocoa for the daughter and coffee for herself. She got these real shifty eyes and said, "Be safe, darling." And I was like, "What is that?" I thought there was like maybe some weird supernatural thing was going to go down with his, wife being a witch or something like that. Maybe she did. Maybe she caused the whole thing. But
Maybe if
that
they,
was a weird.
maybe if he hangs around long enough, he'll find this is the mirror universe. It is the Terran Empire, and everyone here is horrible.
It could be, but yeah, it was just this weird, like, "Be safe, darling," shifty-eyed off into, staring off into space. And did you think it was weird that she turned the TV off right after they did the 15-second countdown, which I thought was kind of a waste of time also.
Maybe that's what astronaut wives do. I don't know.
Yeah, especially since at that point, I think she could go to the window, I think. Didn't she, like, go to the window and, like, actually watch it?
Yeah, why watch it on TV if it's happening outside?
Yeah. And those tubes burn out, man. You don't wanna leave that TV on if you're not watching it.
I do wish they had called him instead of what was his name? Robert Gaines.
Yeah, Robert Gaines.
I want to be Chris Gaines. So he'd be like Garth Brooks parallel universe rock star, which
Nice. Well, speaking of rock stars, when he said it's 0 G and I feel fine, I just could not get REM out of my head.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah. Uh I one thing of when he first goes to this parallel universe, at first I thought it was kind of like an early like media version, TV rendition of like what we call the Mandela Effect now, right?
Right, sure.
I thought that was kind of cool. Of course, it turns out like everything is mildly different, and he'll actually need to Billy Madison school again if he stays in this universe.
Yeah, yeah, and I like the way he got very accusatory of, like, everybody else that the encyclopedias were wrong.
I could see getting very frustrated about that in
Yeah.
his situation
Mhm.
and maybe coming across a little too strong, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely getting some grace on that one.
I mean, I wrote,
Um,
quit obsessing about rank so much, dude. But yes, if you've suddenly been promoted for the past 5 years, or whatever it was, that's kind of
and
weird.
and
I guess in the
and I
past
was
year.
and I'd be saying like, "Man, I went from major to colonel and we're still living in this house?"
Hey, they got
Okay.
the living room. It's a nice living room.
That was man, so cool. The guy working Capcom, right? Capsule Communications. I know it would be physically impossible to happen in this universe, but all I saw was Clint Howard working that station.
How recently were you watching Austin Powers? That's the
Oh
key.
God, I watched them all. Gosh, it was about, let's see, when was the 60th anniversary of Bond? 2022. I
I think
think I
Dr.
watched.
No's 21 maybe for Dr. No.
Okay. At the 60th anniversary, I watched them all in order, over the course of about a month. And then following that, I watched the Austin Powers movies, and then I also watched In Like Flint and Our Man Flint. So
Oh,
just
okay.
kind of had
Going
some
old
fun with
school.
Sci-Fi for
Radio.
that amount of time.
No, I've actually I had to revisit last December because the podcast I listened to was, doing commentary. It's like, well, I guess I'll watch Austin Powers again. It
Oh
had been a
yeah,
while. It had been a while. So yeah.
yeah. I thought they were a ton of fun. Oh, and also Matt Helms. I watched those with Dean Martin, where he was actually a photographer, just like Austin Powers. So I thought that was kind of a cool crossover.
I recently learned Dean Martin had his variety. I think this was on Mission Log, right? Where or maybe it was elsewhere, but Dean Martin had his variety show for in the mid 70s, where apparently the deal was he didn't want to do any rehearsals, so someone else would fill in, and he only wanted to work 1 day a week. So he'd just come in and wing it, but he'd wing it
Uh-huh.
really well because he was a pro.
Yeah. God,
Um,
not surprising.
one of my favorite ones is because you're always like, is he really drunk or is he putting on an act, right? But the one piece of evidence I will give you from around this time, I think it's 1961. It's the only filmed performance of most of the Rat Pack together. Um,
Oh, no way.
but Dean Martin comes out, kind of like looking silly, goes to bow, bashes his head on the microphone. He looks like, "Oh," like genuinely like, you know, shocked for a couple seconds, like he breaks character or he actually is drunk. I can't tell which.
There was Yeah, I don't want to say who it was, but I saw somebody do the same thing at the Saturn Awards, and I was like, oh man, that's a tough way to get off the stage.
Well, when I used to do these podcasts, like holding the mic, I would sometimes
Yeah.
bash my teeth with it. So,
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
might have chipped a tooth during a podcast. I don't know.
I totally get that. So initially they mentioned the 15 orbits, and I was like, 15 orbits? I mean, that's like close to 15 hours. I think it's like 45 minutes for a low Earth orbit. You're going about 1,000 miles an hour. Um, I'm sorry, about 25,000 miles an hour. So it's about once an hour, maybe a little bit faster than that. So I was kind of wondering where all that time went. And I thought they were trying to explain it away when one of the generals or maybe the colonel said, not Gaines, the other colonel, there was some factor up there. And I'm like, yeah, there was a pucker factor up there. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but
I can
like,
guess.
yeah, like if I'm up there and there's, I'm not. You could see he was like, hey, I can't. I've lost contact with you. That he was getting a little bit, agitated, not panicky, but agitated. But no radar contact, also, which is surprising because there's sites all over the world, like you mentioned later. But one of the guys said to him, hey, we're dealing with, what do you say, 9 natural laws and a host of intangibles,
Oh yeah, you sent me those are
unknowables.
in the post PS to your notes, I guess. Those natural
Yeah. So have
laws,
you ever
which
heard about the 9 natural laws? Is that a reference you've ever come across before?
I wasn't quite like that's why I sent you my parallel universes and fiction page I was looking at. It's like, oh, this must be the tangent that well, it is the tangent that got your attention, isn't it? So we have
Yeah,
nature runs on sunlight, nature uses only the energy it needs, nature fits form to function. Nature recycles everything, nature rewards cooperation, nature banks on diversity, nature demands local expertise, nature curbs excess from within, nature taps the power of limits. Now I want to compare that to the 8 tenets of Buddhism.
I don't know, but when I look at this as being 1960s, if this is in fact the reference that they were getting to, I mean, this is, I guess the site is globalstewards.org, but I looked around the internet and found a few other things that pointed to the same thing. I was just kind of curious, like what, if anything, specifically we thought was being referred to with the nine nine laws of nature.
No, I'm just again sitting here wondering if it's like a scientific version of Buddhism, which right mindfulness, right effort, right livelihood. That's not one of those natural laws. Right action, that
Mhm.
kind of is. Right speech. Okay, this is the right resolve. This is more about your personal actions. That just kind of popped in my head a little bit. Oh, also, since I dork interrupted you on Dr. No, it was 1962.
Okay.
I looked that up too. So it seemed like I correct you, and I was wrong. So I got to
Thank
call
you, sir.
myself out on
No,
that.
yeah, no, it happens. And I was gonna say, why? It doesn't feel like almost 3 years ago that I did that, but heck, you never know, man.
Well, since 2020, time has not worked properly for anybody, has it?
I have no idea when we are. I have no idea how much things should cost or what they do cost. I have no idea about anything at this point.
May you live in interesting times, as the
No,
Chinese
take it
proverb
back.
says.
Take
I
it
think it,
back.
yeah, it is supposed to be insulting, isn't it? um, if you want to throw out another big point now, that's fine. You can do it later, but I was gonna start heading into my questions, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the only kind of the really, the money shot I think for this episode was, at the end where not the general was talking to the general and trying to sort of advocate for Robert Gaines, Major Robert Gaines.
Yeah.
And he
Actually,
said,
that made me think a little bit about contact as well. I mentioned contact before. Now I'm thinking about contact, where this made me think a lot about Jodie Foster's mission, or Ellie, whatever her name was, her mission report after going through the machine, where
yeah,
it's like you just popped right through. It was just static, and then at the end, it's like, yeah, but it was 9 hours of
but
static.
it was like a fuck ton of static. I'm sorry, it was a lot of static. Yeah. Um, Got it. Yeah. So he says, we don't even know the rules, let alone the facts. We're little ants that have just made it to the desert. Now we say we've conquered the Sahara, and we haven't conquered anything. We're only starting to find the mysteries. We haven't even begun to solve them. We're going to do a lot of groping, though, a lot of dark nights through a lot of dark space before we find the clues, let alone the answers. We've got a long way to go. Boy, that really could have been Rod Serling's prologue right there.
Yeah.
Except they came back after that and they're like, "Hey, just thought you should know, we just had radio contact with a colonel, Colonel Gaines, who was looking for landing instructions." And I did think it was interesting that the ship was the same name. I guess when he was in the parallel universe, did they ever refer to um Phoebus 10? Like, I know that's what they were calling him when he launched. But this other ship had a different name, and
Yeah,
I
I
can't for
think
the
there
life of me
was a
remember what it
different
was.
name, but
Yeah.
it was done a little confusingly. I had the same thing, like,
Mhm.
huh?
Yeah.
So, no, I was gonna say that monologue though. I wrote in my notes it's a very Trekkian monologue as well, except for the groping part. Honestly, they could have put that in too. I was making a joke there, but but yeah,
You
it made
know,
me think very much of something Spock would say as he's
yeah,
staring at a
groping
big
was a
space
perfectly
amoeba
good
or
word.
something.
Yeah, groping was a perfectly good word back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Astro 7, they called it.
Okay, so
Spacecraft identified itself as Astro 7, and the person in it said, "What? What did he say? What did he say?" He identified himself as Colonel Robert Gaines. He asked for reentry data. Colonel Robert Gaines? Yes, sir.
no, let him down, I guess. Let him in. Of course, you're gonna get a weirder Twilight Zone episode now that you have two Robert Gaines.
Yeah, no kidding.
Didn't have
Um,
that in the one we saw.
and we didn't even mention Mr. Styles from Balance of Terror, who I believe was also in The Odyssey of Flight 33.
Oh
He
yeah,
played the psychiatrist um, that did a little preliminary work on Robert Gaines, trying to figure out his condition.
yeah. It is a stressful situation because I'm sitting here thinking, man, I can't recall my week in as much detail as he's promising. Because he's like, I'll tell you every single
Uh,
thing that happened in my week there. I'm like, I couldn't do that.
right? Everything, every minute. I can tell you all of it. I'm like, whoa, hey, how about
But
just I'll give you the gist.
maybe it's one of the military guys or again Zen Buddhists or something who can walk into a room and they just instantly memorize everything there. Tibetan monks, that's apparently how they remember like 40 pages of text every day.
So is that a skill they develop, or is that how they weed out people that want to be Tibetan monks but don't make the cut?
Well, they find the reincarnation as a 3-year-old or younger and then just start in on them.
Okay, okay.
So
So
this is
it's
happening from age like preschool.
yeah, so it's taught.
Yeah, it's taught.
Okay, good.
I
That
don't
would
think we can just show up and I mean they might let us hang out, but I don't think you can become a llama at this point if you want to.
Yay, I'm a llama again. Oh man.
Yeah, it might be too late for us to be llamas. I don't know, could be wrong, you never know. If you
Never
study
know.
hard enough and memorize 40 pages of what I guess not Sanskrit, but whatever it is, a day, you can do that maybe.
Okay, but before we get to the questions, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What, if any, scientific basis is there to justify all the stories that we have about parallel dimensions, other
Quantum, it's all quantum.
realities?
Everything's quantum. You say
Quantum, just
quantum.
quantum. You
It's
just say quantum. It's quantum science
it's the
and the
scientific
quantum
version of
realm.
saying a wizard did it.
And I love that. Even though the movie flopped and I still haven't seen it, I'm sure it's a perfectly okay movie. Is Ant-Man Quantumania, because they just totally owned the fact that all they did in the other movies was quantum realm, quantum this, quantum
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'll reiterate. I haven't seen it, but I'll reiterate Mark's take from another podcast we did yesterday, I guess, or last week. But he was like, "I saw Quantum Mania. All the pieces seemed fine. It was fine. but then I watched the first Ant-Man again, and it was so much better. It just had the special sauce that a good movie needs. Where maybe this one just was lacking in that, and Bill Murray couldn't
Yeah.
make up for it. I don't know.
And I also think that the 30 film buildup to Endgame, brought us to such a peak and
Hmm.
drop, that just I don't know about you, but I didn't really want to do anything after that.
Well, the problem there is that was the out for the major actors.
Yeah,
Um, Chadwick Boseman died, which was a big tragedy, and
crazy. I know.
I think he was going to carry that cinematic universe. I like
Yeah.
it was going to be his now.
Mhm.
Him and and they were gonna. I think it was gonna be him and Captain Marvel, basically, which
Yeah.
and that's to no fault of Brie Larson. That's kind of fallen on its face now. So I haven't seen the Marvels yet. I might like the Marvels. I don't know. Haven't seen it.
I mean, four of us to a movie with snacks has to be, I'm going to say, a minimum of $100.
I could
Like
have caught up
it's
on
probably
them.
more than that.
Yeah, I could have caught up on them night home by now, but I just haven't. My like I said before we got into the show, what have I been watching recently? I watched The Founder from a few years ago. I missed that, the Michael Keaton
Uh-huh.
one. I got The Lost City because that looks fun with Sandra
That was
Bullock
fun.
and
Yeah, it was super
yeah,
fun.
yeah. So I'm buying stuff like that. I'm like the
Yeah.
superhero stuff is just kind of like I did recently rebuy a lot of the phase or not rebuy but buy some of the phase 2, 3 Marvel stuff because you go watch
Yeah.
those again, they're still pretty good. Yeah, I
Oh
mean
yeah.
there's certain like the sky's always white. That's weird, but there's
Hmm.
certain ticks. Everything is there's that low contrast look I don't like, but
Right.
they're good movies even if they still have some of the Marvel flaws. Whereas now, uh, yeah, I just haven't seen any of these. I didn't watch Black Panther 2. I was because I'm like it's going to be depressing because he's not there.
Right. Yeah, I
Even if the
haven't seen it
movie's fun,
either.
it's still going to be like on a sub level. I think on a subconscious level, like just depressing to watch.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I got you.
let's do some questions. So I guess
All
I
right.
hope I answered your question. I mean, I what else you say? Quantum man.
Yeah, I mean, I hear, I've heard some basic explanations, that are dumbed down enough for, mass consumption, but nothing super convincing.
Yeah. So in this episode, who goes into the Twilight Zone?
Oh, that would be Major, and apparently also Colonel
Yeah, Colonel's about to meet
Robert
it harder
Gaines.
if he's going to meet
Yeah,
Major. Yeah. They didn't want
yeah.
to do the split screen thing for this though, because that was still dodgy on early 60s TV, I guess.
Hmm.
They do it, but has the Twilight Zone? I think Twilight Zone's done some split screen somewhere. But I can't think of it off the top of my head. Maybe Mirror Image? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, yeah, both versions of Robert Gaines. I guess parallel universe Helen Gaines. To a certain extent, Helen Prime too, but the one who
Hmm.
Helen Prime's gonna get a quick, if weird, explanation where Helen and daughter had to like kind of figure it out, which
Yeah,
is
but they stayed. I mean, and this probably isn't, you know, a rule, an inviolable law. But I would say that since Helen and um the daughter,
Kid Gaines.
Miley, Millie, Kid Gaines, daughter Gaines, the one who I was also
Maggie.
convinced, yeah, I was convinced she was a witch for a little while too. Maggie, yeah.
Oh, I
Uh
see why Paul Comey didn't get his call out on my trivia. He's the last name on the list, and I probably got
ah,
lazy by then.
that's all right. But yeah, they stayed, I mean, they stayed home, right? They stayed in their own, whatever universe they belong in, whatever reality they belong in. So that's why I left them out.
Yeah, but they were adjacent at least. I mean,
Yeah.
when she kisses the wrong husband, that has to be kind of Twilight Zone-y for her, yeah.
Yeah.
But not nearly as much as our main character, who obviously goes very deeply into the Twilight
Hmm.
Zone. Um, how about how much he deserves it? So yeah, I don't feel like talking about mom and daughter about if they deserve it because they're just in the situation. But
Yeah.
Robert Gaines, we can talk about if he deserves his weird trip to and back.
Dude, to paraphrase a popular saying, mess around and find out. You're gonna, strap yourself to a tube and shoot yourself into space, being one of the first human beings to do it. You're probably gonna find some stuff that you didn't know was there. So did he deserve it? I think I always I was just sort of balk at the word, or wrestle with myself with the word deserve. Um, but I'm gonna say that yeah, I mean you're an explorer, right? You head out over beyond where you can see the edge of the earth, and you're gonna find stuff that you didn't know. That's the whole point, right? That's the whole goal, is to see some new things and discover some new things. So I'd say not only did they deserve it, but they were probably at some level hoping to find it.
Maybe. Yeah, I was gonna say he's a test pilot, so he's fully deserving. And I was just thinking about, I was like, well, John Glenn, if he had had some weird thing happen, he would kind of deserve it too. I think he did see weird
Hmm.
space stuff while he was up there, but he had some weird
It's
experience while he was
yeah,
floating
Scott
around.
Carpenter was the one who was famous for seeing the yellow flashes of light
Oh, as a carpenter, okay, yeah,
here and
but
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of like this. I mean, I don't think he
Hmm.
maybe he did end up a parallel universe and it's been classified. I don't know.
Could be.
Because I was thinking, like 20 years later, when the Challenger doesn't make it into space, those people did not deserve it because they were scientists, and the reason the thing blew up was stupid. So,
Yeah.
in that case, no. But in this case,
And
sure.
yeah, sure. Totally different situation. But yeah.
I mean, you always hear O-ring, O-ring, and the O-ring wasn't good enough. I didn't know the actual reason that that was the issue was it just got unnaturally cold in Florida the night before, and they simply had not tested the thing under 40
Yeah.
degrees.
So Netflix has a documentary produced by Bad Robot, and one of the producers of note in that is named Glenn Zipper, and he was on an episode of Mission Log Live, and we had a chance to chat with him because we were in training for my airline. We were using that as an example of um, when you have a rule that is there to keep people safe, and then that rule becomes inconvenient. What do you do, right? It's like any other time that you have, a limit, a boundary, a line in the sand, and you decide for the sake of expediency you're going to ignore that rule. That was a NASA decision. That was a NASA decision that they pressured, the manufacturer of the solid rocket boosters into making in order to launch that mission at a temperature below, which I think was 54 degrees Fahrenheit, which was the limit for a launch for those kind of reasons. Um, as the crew, all they basically knew was, hey, we checked with um something Thiokol, the manufacturer of the solid rocket booster, and they said we're good to go. So if you're, you know, in that position and you hear from NASA and you hear from the manufacturer that it's good to go, you're probably going to think, okay, we're good to go. But it wasn't.
Yeah, what kind of blew my mind is I spent what almost 30 years hearing O-rings with a complicated explanation what happened,
Hmm.
and then having it put in. I guess I must have heard that or someone else talk about the series, but having it put in a simple sentence, yeah, they didn't test it below 40 degrees and it got cold. It's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
the simple explanation, instead of because I remember at the time it's just like super complicated one. So if you want a real life conspiracy theory, I mean, that's it. It's just make it sound so complicated that nobody can get it, even though it's got a simple explanation.
Yeah, Morton Thiokol, and it's definitely worth watching. I don't know if it's been pulled from Netflix, but it was a Netflix original, which
Hmm.
makes me think it's probably still there.
Right. Um, that was a deserved question, so which went on a tangent. That's fine. Let's put this on the tripometer. 0 is not trippy. 5 is extremely trippy.
Well, and is there, and I know it's very up to me what I pick. Do we ever look at this in terms of when the episode dropped, or by today's standards, or by 1963 in this case
That's
standards?
gonna color my score a little bit.
Yeah, because I think this is very high concept science fiction for 1963. And I think going up, in a rocket to just circle, the globe a few times and then come back down, and finding out that there is another reality, a parallel universe, a window that you can go through and find yourself in another place that's almost the same but slightly different. I think by March of 63 standards, I would probably give this a 4, 4 and a quarter.
Okay. Yeah, I'm coming. I guess I am looking a little more from we've seen a fair amount more of this, and a lot of it is a lot trippier. Everything all at once, that sort of thing. I guess that one's way
And
trippier
oh
than
yeah, no kidding. But I will say that I don't know that when you've asked me this question before, if I ever tried to interpolate back to the time that it was originally aired. Like
This might
that's
make you want to do that though, because it's close to the first example of this concept in pop culture.
right. Yeah, and look at how many times it was copied, not copied, built upon.
Hmm.
Look how many times other writers stood on the shoulders of Rod Serling, and wrote almost the same story in a different way.
Yeah, the only one I could find earlier than this, other than, like ancient Hindu epics or something, um, that has
Yeah.
some of this kind of stuff. But yeah, it was like that Flash comic book seems to be the first time
Hmm.
someone thought of it as a convenience just to put the flashes together. And in this Twilight Zone, now we're starting to maybe put a little more like scientific butter into it, a little more about what are the effects of this other than two superheroes can run around together. So I mean, as a modern viewer, there's some trippy stuff here. I definitely like the sequence of him returning to his own reality, even though it didn't make sense. It's cinematically very cool. So as a modern viewer, I would say 2.5, and then I boosted up to a 3 just for having a truly original concept for the time. Of course, I mean
Yeah.
4 fully
That's
valid too, of course.
per
But yeah, I was like,
yeah, perfectly yeah, I agree with you. God, I want to change my score now, but I'll stick with it. I know I think that might be the trippiest score of given an episode of Twilight Zone. I don't know why this one piques my imagination the way it does, but it does.
I think, and it piques mine too. And I think one of the reasons is it's like kind of a half sketch, and it's not like they didn't finish it. It was like it couldn't have been finished yet. A
Yeah.
few weeks ago we did Mute,
Mhm.
which kind of said in the episode, like if they had done this 2 years later, they would have had like the X-Men template, and it would have worked really well on
Yeah.
that. But
Hmm.
at this point, it's kind of a rough concept, and it's no fault of its own. So the parallel
Right.
feels rough for this kind of parallel. Well, actually, most of the details are kind of cool. So, but it's a little bit clunky now that it's a more common narrative and people can finesse it more.
Right.
This is the nuts and bolts version because it's the prototype almost.
Yeah, that really is. And that's I think why yeah, why it kind of hit me the way it did.
Speaking of prototypes, I woke up this morning to a fun news piece. Just
What was
looking at
that?
CNN or something. It
Uh-huh.
was the most money ever paid for an action figure. It was a prototype. That's why it came to mind. And it's the Boba Fett prototype from 1979, where the missile does fire.
Oh, no way.
Because
Okay.
they were like, kids are gonna put out their eyes if we put out this thing, so that it didn't go past prototype. But yeah,
So Boba Fett appeared, I think, for the first time in the Christmas special. Was
yeah,
that is that
the
is that
holiday
accurate?
special. The
Sorry, the
holiday is
holiday
the
special.
holiday
Yeah,
is Life Day. I'm
Life
not
Day
trying
on
to be
Kashyyyk.
woke about it, but it's yes, it's
Yeah,
not Christmas, it's
it's
Life Day
no, no. Thank you for
with its
correcting that.
own iconic
Starring the stars, Art Carney. Um, and it's
starship. Oh, I think there's still Jefferson Starship at the time.
yeah. So that was that, and then it was
Little bit in Empire.
Empire, a little bit Empire when he was lined up with
When
the
can you
other
miss
bounty
him,
hunters.
really?
Yeah,
And then he gets
and yeah,
eaten in return.
that's it. And then he gets out in Book of Boba Fett.
I don't even want to bother. No, actually, I did see. I guess he showed up in the Mandalorian first. Whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. I sure did.
It's nice I guess they got the guy that was originally in the suit to come back.
Hmm.
That's correct, right? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
Good for him. But have not bothered to watch several of the new Star Wars shows. I know I need to watch Andor. Haven't done it yet. Sorry, folks.
yeah. And Andor, I think, is the best of what's out there. I also really enjoyed Ewan McGregor
Oh, Kenobi.
in Kenobi. It started off a little bit slow for me, but then man, did it paid off at the end, I thought.
See that one, I got myself entangled with it. So I do have
Hmm.
a kind of a little bit of a love for that show because we were doing a podcast on Star Wars and we got John Jackson Miller, who wrote the Kenobi book, to do it with us. So I was like, oh, and it was
Right.
right when that show is coming out, which uses that book in continuity. It
Hmm.
does not break the continuity of that book. It actually continues it. So read the book, watched the series, talked to the guy about the original Star Wars. I was like, hey, I have fondness for this now.
Nice.
I mean, I'm sure you've stepped in a few of those fondness puddles as well with your podcasting. So
Oh yeah.
like you might like it more just because got to
It's hard not to get
hobnob
attached.
a little bit. Right, right.
Yeah, but I think the familiarity it's interesting because, and this came from, and we may be into like just viewer, Patreon only content at this point, but um, there was a British experiment where they published a word into a magazine or into a newspaper, a new made up word, and as people were reading that word, the context based on people reporting like, "Hey, what did you think this meant?" with very little context, they all thought it meant something bad. But as this word got used more and more and more over the next several weeks in the same newspaper, they asked people, "What does this word mean?" And they thought it meant something good. So there's something about seeing something over and over again and being more familiar with it that makes you like it more. Was sort of the conclusion that the study gave. And they didn't do things like describe something good with this word or describe something universally hated with this word. They tried to make it as bland as possible. Um, but there is something about seeing something kind of over and over again that makes you just really, really like it. And part of the reason that I think you're watching it over and over again is because you liked it enough to watch it again. But I think it tends to go up exponentially, um, when that happens. So yeah, I mean, the shows we look at, the shows you look at, the more I watch them, the more I think about them, the more I peel back the onion and try to find, important lessons in them.
Do not
Yeah,
ask me
they
how many times I've seen the TNG episode Parallels, just to, directly reference the Twilight Zone.
Oh man, you got crazy Riker in there, man. Crazy bearded Riker.
Yeah, no, that's definitely in my top five. Have watched it too many times TNG episodes because I like the trippy ones. I mean, I'm doing a Twilight Zone podcast, of course I do.
Heck yeah, man.
I want the Twilight Zone episodes of Star Trek as well.
Mhm.
Um, well, we were talking Ted up front, but if you want to give people where to find that, I guess we'll wrap up for today then.
Yeah, Talking Ted on the Roddenberry Podcast Network. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, and it's showing up as well still on the Mission Log, the Orville feed. We're just about to, it's a 7-part series on Peacock, and it broke the records for the best opening weekend of a Peacock original ever. I say ever. Peacock's not that old, but still, that's not bad. More importantly, it was the most watched US sitcom in the UK in like 2 decades and 20 years. So, yeah, it made quite a splash over there. 7 episodes in series 1 or season 1, got renewed for a second season, and we'll be back probably sometime in the next year or so. And we are just, as of this recording, we're dropping, I think, episode 4 of, we're planning on 9 total episodes. We had one intro episode where we had Seth MacFarlane on the show and chatted with him. And we're also going to do an outro episode where we are going to introduce a new product by Next Century Spirits, which is the company that sponsored us with Bear Fight Whiskey.
Yeah, if you're
So
gonna get
look for something new
sponsored,
with them.
get some booze out of the deal.
Right, got some right here. A little bit of glare right there, but Bear Fight Whiskey, American single malt.
Yes, like if your sponsor was, say, tires, that's not as exciting, is it?
I'd be like, ah, look at
Tire.
my tires, look at my knobbies.
Are you guys gonna chase with the Ted movies? You can always do that if you want to do some podcasting.
We could. We chatted with Seth about the Ted movies, about Ted 1 and Ted 2. Um, and why Ted the series, why now? And he said it was actually Peacock's idea. Somebody in, marketing or development at Peacock, approached him to do it. And they kind of put their heads together and said, okay, well, let's do it's obviously not going to be Mark Wahlberg. Um, I guess with that spirit, it's not going to be Mark Wahlberg, but they went they went prequel. And what's fun for us is that I think at least 5 people from the Orville are regulars on this. Of course, Seth, um, uh,
Scott
uh, M-
Grimes.
Scott Grimes, Penny Johnson Gerald, Tim Russ shows up in an episode. Um, Lieutenant Dan shows up as well, and
Same makeup.
No, no, different makeup. Max Burkholder, who played Tomlin in the If the Stars Should Appear, shows up. Mike Henry, I was feel terrible that I had to think about his name, who plays Lieutenant Dan, as well as Georgia Wiggum, who is our favorite downvoting barista in
Majority
um,
rule.
Majority Rules, and who comes back in Future Unknown, the season 3 finale.
Radio. And yeah, I've been watching. I do like that. I kind of think the dynamic works better with a 14, 15-year-old and his weird teddy bear than say a 35-year-old in some ways. I guess there's
It
a
it
plus to
really
both, but
it
it's a
really does.
worthwhile dynamic.
Yeah, and the part that I think is really funny, or the role that Ted fills, is kind of like, when you're that age and you have a friend who's just a little bit older than you, and you think they're really cool, but then again, they don't have any friends their own age and they're hanging out with you. and and they're the
I
ones
see
giving
that going on in the lobby at my school.
and they and so you think you should be taking advice from them on things like relationships and girls and how to make your way in the world. And
No,
it's just
last
the
year
last person.
yeah, last year I had it was third grade of junior high. So that's how they say in Japan, third year of junior
Uh,
high. And every
right.
week I'd see him running around with some fifth graders. And okay, sure. Seems a little weird, but they seem to be having a fun time. I think it might have been he was a little less mature and not
Yeah.
over mature. But yeah, like you said, I'm like, what's the dynamic there,
Yeah, but Ted just provides a lot of really bad advice, and Johnny's just drinks it up.
Not quite old enough to realize he's getting BS'd too.
Yeah.
Um, as for us, we do a lot of podcasts around here. We're on Patreon at Podcastio Podcastius. We also talk about films and filth. Mike has been known to show up there a few times for a few films. Um, Talking about Space 1999 on Podcast 1999, where you've also been and hopefully will be soon.
We're
And
gonna
there's some
bring the wonder here pretty soon.
that is correct. And if you're a video game sort of fella or gal, there's Luke Loves Pokemon and the Game Show where gamers game each other about games. And I've been gamed a few times. Somehow I won a round. I don't know how that happened because I'm not that much of
That's
a gamer, but I
that's
guessed
awesome. Just
well. I
just
guessed
reminds me of
well.
a Ken. What do you do? A game. What do you know? Know how to game?
Yeah.
A game.
Okay. Well, I wish you luck for future references of the Mission Luge, the Orville podcast.
That sounds good, man. Hopefully we'll see a season 4. And we're doing Jessica and I are doing a crossover with JP from Talking the Orville, as well as Eric, who does the Orville fan films on YouTube, and called A Planetary Union, and Elise Hargreaves, who is a game developer, and she's doing a Orville um, video game that she's developing. So we get together Saturdays once a month, and you can catch that. It's called The Union on YouTube.
Okay, you got more. It's not in there. I was trying to make a bad joke and you had some more.
I just realized I was like, I got other stuff to talk about too.
Okay, anyway, just listeners, just hit the minus 15 buttons twice and listen to my outro again. I'm not going to do it again.
You can just cut that, or you can just edit me out. That's fine also.
Oh, no, I'm going to leave it in there for sure.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I love to leave in meta outros. Works for me. Yeah, Bringers of Wonder, where are we? We're doing Catacombs of the Moon next week. We're actually doing Seed of Destruction this week because for some reason John wants to be a guest on Catacombs of the Moon, the one without
Okay.
Martin Landau. So sure.
Okay.
We'll see why. Maybe he has a good reason for that. Bringers of Wonder. Okay, so next we'll probably be getting to Bringers of Wonder around mid-July.
Okay.
And I think we're going to do it as one episode. Actually, I'll ask you, is that a good one as one or two for a podcast?
Oh, I mean, I leave that up to you, but for me,
Okay.
I think it'd be fine for one.
I think that's our plan. So it just means we'll have to watch more space that week. And I'll probably leave them 5 minutes or so, but I can read you a few upcoming films and filth and see if any of the unclaimed ones catch your attention.
Okay.
Capernaum, I don't know what that is. The Lives of
I
Others, I
don't
don't know
either.
what that is. Uh, Three Idiots. That's on the good list, but I don't know what that is. Smolensk. I don't know what that is. That's on the bad list. Your Name. Do you know Your Name?
No.
That is living in Japan. I know it as Kimi no Namewa, which is What Is Your Name, which is a anime film from about 5 years ago, which is fucking great. Honestly, if you want to watch a good movie,
Yeah.
you can have
Yeah,
in with
sure.
that. Maybe I'll stick your name on that if you
Yeah, no, that
want.
sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, a few others coming. Un Unfortunately, Amadeus is up again because Norman has his issues now, so I'm not going to ask him, obviously, for the
No.
time being.
Okay. Does he have something going on that I'm
Oh, have you not heard the Norman news?
No, 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 no.
Oh, okay. Sorry to right. It's he's now doing chemotherapy, and there
Shut
are
the fuck up.
other people doing mission log. The past couple weeks with Holly and Earl. I actually thought you were lined up to do a mission log,
Oh
which you
wow.
might be soon.
No.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
he's
definitely out of the loop with that.
yeah. If you look at the Discord, I think it's in the promenade. There's he
Okay.
gave a full description of what's going on, and
Yeah.
yeah, so that sucks. And 2020, I actually had lymphoma in my face, so I did that route a few years ago. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean I'm
Yeah,
fine
lymphoma's
now,
not
but
easy, man. Hopefully, I mean, catch it early.
yeah, it sounds like he has something similar. You can look
Okay.
at the Discord for his
Yeah,
exact
no, I'll
words,
take a look
but
at it right now.
but yeah, he's the mission log is currently a little bit different. So, and hopefully he will. I think he said 8 months of chemo. When I did it, it took him a long time to diagnose it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then what did I do? I started doing the worst part was them doing the biopsy where they did like surgery on my head, right? That was actually the worst thing.
Yeah.
That was in August. And then what was it October to early February, so 2020 to 2021, I did the chemo rounds, and it was weird for a while and all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. But yeah, since then it's just like now I'm at a 4 month checkup to go to the hospital. Here's the thing in Japan, I've had the same doctor the entire time since October 2020. I mean, that doesn't
Oh,
happen in
no way.
America.
No, it doesn't.
When I go in 2 weeks, it's going to be the same lady I've been seeing for the past 4 years. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, and it's just, you go from one person to the next, everybody has their specialty and
Yeah,
it's
but
really
it's been
really hard to get
all the
answers.
same person,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of nice. But oh, he's also getting married. That was the other. I didn't know him and
Oh, he
Carol were
and
not
Carol are
married,
getting
but
married?
yeah. So
Oh,
he just
okay,
he
good.
decided like let's not make this. I guess decided to not make it a completely bad time and added that into the mix.
Wow. Okay. Um, yeah,
Right.
I'll definitely reach out to him and I know I've been, not super involved lately, but busy at work and busy doing, Ted the series. I think I'm about boy, I must just I thought I was only about 4 episodes behind on mission logs. That's probably about when all of this started, huh?
It's yeah, he was on Timeless because if you listen to the uncut, he was like, "Oh, I've been having like I've been seeing the chiropractor," and I had the same thing where it's like it was
Yeah.
like May, and my wife was like, "Your face looks funny," and I was like, "No, it doesn't," and then I thought it
Shut
was
up.
like,
Your face looks funny.
well, yeah, but no, because there was a tumor here, it had made my eyes
Yeah.
look like slightly different sizes.
Uh-huh.
And then I went in, thinking, oh, maybe it's allergies or something. And he was like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I'll send it to the next guy. So there was a bit of bumping to the
Right.
next guy until they figured out like what it actually was. So I guess it's good he seemed to get a pretty quick diagnosis because mine was over like 3 months. So
Yeah.
it's not that wasn't fun dragging it out. It's kind of nice to
Hmm.
get figure it out quickly, I guess, because it sounds like the health issues really just started a few weeks ago. So
Good.
it also is 2020, right? So just getting into hospitals at that time was not was kind of
Oh
difficult.
yeah. No, I know. I was scheduled for something on one side of my face. A basal cell that ended up being pretty big, but that's nothing. That's like cancer light.
Yeah.
Um, but it was sort of a question of, are we going to be able to get you in to do this? And
Mm.
I was like, well, fuck, you're already gonna take a chunk a quarter size out of my cheek. I don't want that to get wait another year and then have
Yeah.
to, sew
Bad year
part of
for
my
health issues.
button there or something.
um, sorry, just kind of I assumed you do that, but I'm Debbie Downering you now. But
No, yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm a little
so I'm
kind of just
adding you on.
a little surprised that I'm that far out of the loop. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm putting your
That
name down for your name. I am sure I'm 90% sure you will like that movie. So
I bet I will. What did I just watch that was fucking awesome? Blue something? The actress who the anime, the actress who
Perfect
kind
Blue.
of fell Perfect Blue. Fucking
That's Mark.
awesome.
That's Mark's birthday choice. I'll be watching that in the next week or two, and
Yeah.
then we'll be doing a podcast on that.
I think you know why I think I watched that fucking thing was because of Requiem for a Dream. It kept coming up.
I think it is.
Right? Because they
Actually,
owned, yeah, they I think you were I think somebody was saying that they bought the rights to that movie just so they could use some scenes from Perfect Blue in Requiem for a Dream.
it's
Like the
actually now
bathtub
that.
scene.
Do you want to
Yeah.
do that movie? We'll be doing that in the next week or two.
Oh, do you
Uh,
not have anybody for it?
no, it's Mark's birthday pick, and we traditionally haven't been inviting people for birthday picks, but there's no reason we
Oh
can't.
no, 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 have at it. No, 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 no.
Oh no, no,
Do your
I
thing.
actually like say I could email them, and we don't know what movie we're doing next Wednesday night for you. If that's open, you can come and do that.
I mean Wednesday next week I'm gonna be in a hotel and stuff, and I
Okay.
just don't like the way that turns out.
There's like two other
Yeah.
movies we might be
Okay.
doing there, so because there's several guests in there, but maybe I'll hold off Perfect Blue 1 week and see what's up on that because it's Mark's birthday. I'm gonna put it on July 17th, so there's a few weeks to play with if you do want in on it. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, leave me off for now. And
okay.
yeah, because I don't want to be yeah, I don't want to mess things up being
Oh,
from a hotel and having bad Wi-Fi and stuff like
the
that.
bad Wi-Fi because
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, Luke had been coming in on his cellular data, so
Yeah.
it's kind
And
of.
I'm not even like we're at a different hotel now, and I've been using my Wi-Fi hotspot off my phone for most things because the internet there just sucks.
Oh, here's a run of stuff we're doing in the fall: Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Braveheart, Barbed
Mm.
Wire, Memento,
I never saw Barbed Wire.
Hercules in New York. Is that a show of interest or a show of non-interest?
Probably none. I mean, I
Okay,
imagine Barbed Wire is on the bad list.
it's on the bad list. Braveheart, Memento on the good list. Hercules in New York
Okay.
on the bad list, but I'm pretty
I
sure it's gonna
never
be
heard of
fun.
that one. Yeah.
Hercules in New York.
Yeah.
That's Arnold Schwarzenegger's first film as like a 24-year-old bodybuilder,
Shut the
dubbed.
fuck up. How do I not know this?
Yeah. Look up a clip on YouTube. I think you can watch it on YouTube if
Okay.
you want, but yeah, it's not. I mean, of course, it's on the bad list, but just watching Arnold Schwarzenegger like in his early to mid 20s in a bad
Yeah.
movie should be like a lot of fun. But anyway, I'll
That
put you
should be.
down for the Japanese one, a different
Yeah.
anime for now that is on the
Okay.
list, and
And the
that'll
name of it
Your
is
Name.
Your Name.
Japanese
Okay.
title.
Any idea where I can find it? I mean,
Kimi no Name
I
wa.
think I've actually got, I'll look for it. I think I've actually, yeah, I've actually got a subscription to something on my Amazon Prime. I've got an
Yeah,
anime channel.
I bet
So, yeah.
it was 2016 film. There you go.
Okay.
Everyone in
Look
Japan
it up.
loves it. And I love it. It's a great movie.
Good, good, good.
I'm not
Alrighty,
quite
man.
sure how you go about watching. I have it like on my hard drive somewhere. So
I'll figure it out.
okay,
Thanks, man. I'll let you go. I know it's your press for time.
word up. Yeah, I'm about to hit that wall. So I will end the recording. Goodbye, folks.